So this is re-recording of a read-along. We're reading the Gulag Archipelago by Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. This is 3 volumes, the unabridged. So this is Volume 1, Part 1, Chapter 1, Arrest. This is Aleksandr in the army, and this is prison. Chapter 1, Arrest. How do people get to this clandestine archipelago? Hour by hour, planes fly there, ships steer their course there, and trains thunder off to it, but all with an area mark on them to tell of their destination. At ticket windows or at travel bureaus for the Soviet or foreign tourists, the employees would be astounded if you were to ask for a ticket to go there. They know nothing, and they've never heard of the archipelago as a whole or of any of its innumerable islands. Innumerable. Those who go to the archipelago to administer it get there via the training schools of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Those who go there to be guards are conscripted via the military conscription centers. And those who, like you and me, dear reader, go there to die, must get there solely and compulsorily via arrest. Arrest. Need it be said that it is a breaking point in your life? A bolt of lightning which has scored a direct hit on you? That it is an unassimilable spiritual earthquake not every person can cope with, as a result of which people often slip into insanity. The universe has many different centers, as there are living beings in it. Each of us is the center of the universe, and that universe is shattered when they hiss at you. You are under arrest. If you are arrested, can anything else remain unshattered by this cataclysm? But the darkened mind is incapable of embracing this displacements in our universe, and both the most sophisticated and the very simpleton among us, drawing on all life's experience, can gasp out only, "Me, what for?" And this is a question which, though repeated millions and millions of times before, has yet to receive an answer. Arrest is an instantaneous shattering, thrust, expulsion, somersault from one state into another. We have been happily born, or perhaps have unhappily dragged our weary way down the long and crooked streets of our lives, past all kinds of walls and fences made of rotting wood, rammed earth, brick, concrete, iron railings. We have never given a thought to what lies behind them. We have never tried to penetrate them with our vision or our understanding. But there is where the Gulag country begins, right next to us, 2 yards away from us. In addition, we have failed to notice an enormous number of closely fitted, well-disguised doors and gates in these fences. All those gates were prepared for us, every last one. And all of a sudden, the fateful gate swings quickly open, and 4 white male hands, unaccustomed to physical labor but nonetheless strong and tenacious, grab us by the leg, arm, collar, cap, ear, and drag us in like a sack. And the gate behind us, the gate to our past life, is slammed shut once and for all. That is all there is to it. You are arrested, and you'll find nothing better to respond with than a lamb-like bleat. "Me, what for?" That's what arrest is. It's a blinding flash and a blow which shifts the present instantaneously into the past and the impossible into omnipotent actuality. That's all. And neither for the first hour, nor for the first day, will you be able to grasp anything else, except that in your desperation and the fake circus moon will blink at you. It's a mistake. They'll set things right. and everything which is by now compromised in the traditional, even literary, image of an arrest will pile up and take shape, not in your own disordered memory, but in what your family and your neighbors in your apartment remember. The sharp nighttime ring or the rude knock at the door, the insolent entrance of the unwiped jackboots of the unsleeping state security operatives, the frightened and cowed civilian witnesses at their backs. And what function does this civilian witness serve? The victim doesn't even dare think about it, and the operatives don't remember. But that's what the regulations call for, and so he has to sit there all night long and sign in the morning. For the witness, jerked from his bed, it is torture too, to go out night after night to help arrest his own neighbors and acquaintances. The traditional image of arrest is also trembling hands packing for the victim a change of underwear, a piece of soap, something to eat, and no one knows what is needed, what is permitted, what clothes are best to wear, and the security agents keep interrupting you and hurrying you. You don't need anything, they'll feed you there. It's warm there. It's all lies. They keep hurrying you to frighten you. The traditional image of arrest is also what happens afterward when the poor victim has been taken away. It is an alien, brutal, and crushing force totally dominating the apartment for hours on end. Breaking, ripping open, pulling from the walls, emptying things from wardrobes and desks onto the floor, shaking, dumping, ripping out, and ripping apart, piling up mountains of litter on the floor, and the crunch of things being trampled beneath jackboots. And nothing is sacred in a search. During the arrest of the locomotive engineer in Notion, a tiny coffin stood in his room containing the body of its newly dead child. The jurors dumped the child's body out of the coffin and searched it. They shake sick people out of their sick beds, and they unwind bandages to search beneath them. Nothing is so stupid as to be inadmissible during a search. For example, they seized from the antiquarian Ch.1 a certain number of pages of Tsarist decrees, to wit, the decree on ending the war with Napoleon, on the formation of the Holy Alliance, and a proclamation of public prayer against cholera during the epidemic of 1830. From our greatest expert on Tibet, Vostrikov, they confiscated ancient Tibetan manuscripts of great value, and it took the pupils of the deceased scholar 30 years to wrest them from the KGB. When the Orientalist Nevsky was arrested, they grabbed Tangut manuscripts, and 25 years later, the deceased victim was posthumously awarded the Lenin Prize for deciphering them. From Kargar, they took his archive of the Yenisei Ostiaks and vetoed the alphabet and vocabulary he had developed for his people. A small nationality was thereby left without any written language. It would take a long time to describe all this in educated speech, but there is a folk saying about the search which covers the subject. They are looking for something which was never put there. They carry off whatever they have seized, but sometimes they compel the arrested individual to carry it. Thus, Nina Alexandrovna Palchinskaya held over her shoulder a bag filled with the papers and letters of her eternally busy and active husband, the late great Russian engineer, carrying it into their mall, once and for all, forever. For those left behind after the arrest, there is a long tail end of a wrecked and devastated life, and the attempts to go on and deliver food parcels. But from all the windows the answer comes in barking voices. Nobody here by that name. Never heard of him. Yes, and the worst days in Leningrad, it took 5 days of standing in crowded lines just to get to that window. And it may be only half a year or a year that the arrested person responds at all, or else the answer is tossed out, deprived of the right to correspond, and that means once and for all, no right to correspondence, and that almost certainly means has been shot. That is how we picture arrest to ourselves. The kind of night arrest described is, in fact, a favorite because it has important advantages. Everyone living in the apartment is thrown into a state of terror by the first knock at the door. The arrested person is torn from the warmth of his bed. He is in a daze, half asleep, helpless, and his judgment is befogged. In a night arrest, the state security men have superiority in numbers. There are many of them, armed against one person who hasn't even finished buttoning his trousers. During the arrest and search, it is highly improbable that a crowd of potential supporters will gather at the entrance. The unhurried, step-by-step visits, first to one apartment, then to another, tomorrow to a third and a fourth, provide an opportunity for the security operations personnel to be deployed with a maximum efficiency and to imprison many more citizens of a given town than the police force itself numbers. In addition, there is an advantage to night arrests in that neither the people in the neighboring apartment houses nor those in the city streets could see how many have been taken away. Arrests which frighten the closest neighbors are no event at all to those further away. It's as if they had not taken place. Along that same asphalt ribbon on which the Black Marias scurry at night, a tribe of youngsters strides by day with banners, flowers, and gay, untroubled songs. But those who work consist solely of arrests, for whom the horror is boringly repetitive, have a much broader understanding of how arrests operate. They operate according to a large body of theory, and innocence must not lead one to ignore this. The science of arrest The science of arrest is an important segment of the course on general penology, and has been propped up with a substantial body of social theory. Arrests are classified according to various criteria: daytime and nighttime, at home, at work, during a journey, first-time arrests and repeats, individual and group arrests. Arrests are distinguished by the degree of surprise required, the amount of resistance expected, even though in tens of millions of cases no resistance was expected, and in fact there was none. Arrests are also differentiated by the thoroughness of the required search, by instructions either to make out or not to make out an inventory of confiscated property, or seal a room or apartment, to arrest the wife after the husband and send the children to an orphanage, or to send the rest of the family into exile, or to send the old folks to a labor camp too. No, arrests vary widely in form. In 1926, Irma Mendel, a Hungarian, obtained through the Comintern 2 front-row tickets to the Bolshoi Theater. Interrogator Klegel was courting her at the time, and she invited him to go with her. They sat through the show very affectionately, and when it was over, he took her straight to the Lubyanka. And if on a flowering June day in 1927, on Kuznetsky Most, the plump-cheeked, red-headed beauty Anna Skripnikova, who had just bought some navy blue material for a dress, climbed into a hansom cab with a young man about town, you can be sure it wasn't a lover's tryst at all, as the cabman understood very well, and shown by his frown, he knew the organs don't pay. It was an arrest. In just a moment they would turn on the Lubyanka and enter the black maw of the gates. And if, some 20 years later, Navy Captain Second Rank Boris Burkovsky, wearing a white tunic and a trace of expensive eau de cologne, was buying a cake for a young lady, do not take a note that cake would ever reach the young lady, and not be sliced up instead by the knives of the men searching the captain, and then delivered to him in his first cell. No, one certainly cannot say that daylight arrest during a journey, or arrest in the middle of a crowd has ever been neglected in our country. However, it's always been clean-cut, and the most surprising of all, the victims, in cooperation with the security men, have conducted themselves in the noblest conceivable manner, so as to spare the living from witnessing the death of the condemned. Not everyone can be arrested at home with a preliminary knock at the door, and if there is a knock, then it has to be the house manager or else a postman. Not everyone can be arrested at work either. If the person to be arrested is vicious, then it's better to seize him outside of his ordinary milieu, away from his family and colleagues, from those who share his views, from any hiding places. It is essential that he has no chance to destroy, hide, or pass anything to anyone. VIPs in the military or the party were sometimes given new assignments. Ensconced in a private railway car and then arrested en route. Some obscure, ordinary mortal, scared to death by an epidemic of arrests all around him, and already depressed for a week by sinister glances from his chief, suddenly summoned to the local party committee, where he is beamingly presented with a vacation ticket to a Sochi sanatorium. The rabbit is overwhelmed and immediately concludes that his fears were groundless. After expressing his gratitude, he hurries home, triumphant, to pack his suitcase. It is only 2 hours till train time. He scolds his wife for being too slow. He arrives at the station with time to spare, and there in the waiting room or at the bar he is hailed by an extraordinarily pleasant young man. "Don't you remember me, Pyotr Ivanitch?" Pyotr Ivanitch has difficulty remembering. Well, not exactly, you see, although the young man, however, is beflowing with friendly concern. "Come now, how can that be? I'll have to remind you." And he bows respectfully to Pyotr Ivanitch's wife. "You must forgive us. I'll keep him only 1 minute." The wife accedes, and trustingly the husband lets himself be led away by the arm, forever or for 10 years. The station is thronged, and no one notices anything. Oh, you citizens who love to travel, do not forget that in every station there is a GPU branch and several prison cells. This importunity of alleged acquaintances is so abrupt that only a person who has not had the wolfish preparation of camp life is likely to pull back from it. Do not suppose, for example, that if you are an employee of the American Embassy by the name of Aleksandr D., you cannot be arrested in broad daylight on Gorky Street, right by the Central Telegraph Office. Your unfamiliar friend dashes through the press of the crowd and opens his plundering arms to embrace you. "Sasha!" He simply shouts at you with no effort to be inconspicuous. "Hey, pal, long time no see. Come on over, let's get out of the way." In that moment, a Pobeda sedan draws up to the curb, and several days later, TISS will issue an angry statement to all the papers alleging that informed circles of the Soviet government have no information on the disappearance of Aleksandr D. But what's so unusual about that? Our boys have carried out such arrests in Brussels, which was where Zora Blednov was seized, and not just in Moscow. One has to give their organs their due. In an age of when speeches, the plays in our theaters, and women's fashions all seem to have come off assembly lines, arrests can be of the most varied kind. They take you aside in a factory corridor after you have had your pass checked, and you're arrested. They take you from a military hospital with a temperature of 102, as they did with Hans Bernstein, and the doctor will not raise a peep about your arrest. Just let him try. They'll take you right off the operating table, as they took N. Vorobyev, a school inspector, in 1936, in the middle of an operation for a stomach ulcer, and drag you off to a cell, as they did him, half alive and all bloody. as Karpunich recollect, or like Nadia Letvitskaya, you try to get information about your mother's sentence, and they give it to you, but it turns out to be a confrontation and your own arrest. In the gastronome, the fancy food store, you are invited to a special order department and arrested there. You are arrested by a religious pilgrim whom you have put up for the night for the sake of Christ. You are arrested by a meter man who has come to read your electric meter. You are arrested by a bicyclist who has run into you on the street, by a railway conductor, a taxi driver, a savings bank teller, the manager of a movie theater. Any one of them can arrest you, and you notice the concealed maroon-colored identification card only when it is too late. Sometimes arrests even seem to be a game. There is so much of them, superfluous imagination, so much well-fed energy invested in them. After all, the victim would not resist anyway. It is that the security agents want to justify their employment and their numbers. After all, it would seem enough to send notices to all the rabbits marked for arrest, and they would show up obediently at the designated hour and minute at the iron gates of state security, with a bundle in their hands, ready to occupy a piece of floor in the cell for which they were intended. And in fact, that's the way the collective farmers are arrested. Who wants to go all the way to a hut at night with no roads to travel on? They are summoned to the village Soviet and arrested there. Manual workers are called into the office. Of course, every machine has a point at which it is overloaded, beyond which it cannot function. It is strained and overloaded years in 1945-46, when trainload after trainload poured in from Europe to be swallowed up immediately and sent off to Gulag. All that excessive theatricality went out the window, and the whole theory suffered greatly. All the fuss and feathers of ritual went flying in every direction, and the arrest of tens of thousands took on the appearance of a squalid roll call. They stood there with the lists, read off the names of those on the train, loaded them onto another, and that was the whole arrest. For several decades, political arrests were distinguished in our country precisely by the fact that people were arrested who were guilty of nothing and were therefore unprepared to put up any resistance whatsoever. There was a general feeling of being destined for destruction, a sense of having nowhere to escape from the GPU and KVD, which incidentally, given our internal passport system, was quite accurate. And even in the fever of epidemic arrests, when people leaving for work said farewell to their families every day because they could not be certain they would return at night, even then almost no one tried to run away, and only in rare cases did people commit suicide. And that was exactly what was required. A submissive sheep is a find for a wolf. Its submissiveness was also due to ignorance of the mechanics of epidemic arrest. By and large, the organs had no profound reasons for their choice of whom to arrest and whom not to arrest. They merely had overall assignments, quotas for a specific number of arrests, and these quotas might be filled on an orderly basis or wholly arbitrarily. In 1937, a woman came to the reception room of the Novocherkassk NKVD to ask what she should do about the unfed, unweaned infant of a neighbor who had been arrested. They said, "Sit down, we'll find out." She sat there for 2 hours, whereupon they took her and tossed her into a cell. They had a total plan which had to be fulfilled in a hurry, and there was no one available to send it out into the city. And here was this woman already in their hands. On the other hand, the NKVD did come to get Lavi and Andrei Pavel near Orsha. But he didn't open the door. He jumped out the window, escaped, and shot straight to Siberia. And even though he lived under his own name, it was clear from his documents that he had come from Orsha. He was never arrested, nor summoned to the organs. nor subjected to any suspicion whatsoever. After all, search for wanted person falls into three categories: all Union, Republican, and provincial. The pursuit of nearly half of those arrested in those epidemics would have been confined to the provinces. A person marked for arrest by virtue of chance circumstances, such as a neighbor's denunciation, could be easily replaced by another neighbor. Others, like Andrei Pavel, who found themselves in a trap or ambushed apartment by accident, or who were bold enough to escape immediately there, but before they could be questioned, were never caught and never charged, while those who stayed behind to await justice got a term in prison. And the overwhelming majority, almost all, behaved just like that, without any spirit, helplessly, and with a sense of doom. I'm going to take a break there. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.